Welcome to a story that still keeps me awake some nights. If you're watching this alone, maybe turn on a light, because what I'm about to tell you actually happened. And if you ever move into an old house and find something hidden inside the vents, whatever you do, don't look at the last photo. It all started 2 years ago, when Mark and Emily decided to buy their first home, a quiet 2-story house in rural Wisconsin. It wasn't new, but it was cheap. Too cheap, actually. The kind of deal that makes you laugh nervously and ask, what's the catch? They moved in on a cold Saturday morning. The neighborhood was peaceful, big trees, chirping birds, the smell of damp wood after rain. The previous owners had left in a hurry, leaving behind some old furniture, yellowed curtains, and a few dusty boxes in the attic. By evening, the house looked almost alive again. Boxes stacked in corners, the sound of Emily humming while she unpacked plates, the creak of the wooden floors following every step. Mark was on a ladder fixing an air vent when he noticed something strange inside the duct. It wasn't dust or a dead mouse. It was a thin, leather-bound photo album wedged deep in the metal shaft. "Hey, Em," he called out. "Come look at this." They sat on the floor under the soft orange light of a lamp, flipping through the album. Every picture was old, mid-70s maybe. The edges curled, colors fading, and every single photo had the same little girl in it. Blonde hair, blue dress, smiling in every shot. "Cute kid," Emily said. Mark nodded. "Looks like she lived here." The first few pictures were innocent enough, the girl playing in the yard, holding a small teddy bear, sitting on the porch steps. But as they kept turning the pages, things started to feel off. The later photos looked darker, taken indoors with no flash, like someone was hiding while taking them. And the last photo stopped both of them cold. It wasn't old like the others. The colors were fresh, the quality sharper, like it had been taken recently. And it showed the same girl, same blue dress, sitting on their couch. The very same couch Emily had just placed in the living room that morning. Mark's hands trembled slightly. "Maybe it's a trick of the light," he muttered. But the pattern on the couch, the clock on the wall, even the folded blanket, everything was identical. It was their living room. Emily laughed nervously. "Maybe the last owners faked it like a prank." "Yeah, maybe," he said, though his voice was thin. "Let's just put it away for now." They closed the album, slid it into a drawer, and tried to shake off the unease. That night, they made dinner, watched a movie, and crawled into bed. But Emily couldn't sleep. The house made small, unfamiliar sounds, pipes clicking, wood popping, wind whistling faintly through the vents. Around 2:47 a.m., she heard something else. Soft footsteps. Not heavy, not adult, barefoot, wet. She nudged Mark awake. "Do you hear that?" He listened, half asleep. The sound came from the hallway, a slow, sticky rhythm of feet pressing into old wood. Then silence. Mark grabbed the flashlight and crept toward the sound. The floor was cold. His breath fogged in front of him. When he reached the living room, he froze. Tiny muddy footprints led from the front door, across the carpet, all the way toward the bedroom hallway. The prints were small, child-sized. "There, wet." He called out softly. "Hello, is anyone here?" No answer. He checked the locks. Both doors were bolted. Windows sealed. By morning, the footprints had dried into faint brown smudges. Emily wanted to call the realtor, maybe even the police, but Mark refused. "It's probably some kid from the neighborhood," he said, forcing a smile he didn't feel. "Let's just forget it," they tried. But that night, as Emily passed the living room, she noticed something chilling. The photo album drawer was open, and the last picture was gone. Morning light didn't make the house feel any safer. It crept through the curtains, pale and cold, as if it didn't belong there. Emily stood in the living room, staring at the open drawer. The photo album lay there, half closed. One photo, the last one, was missing. "Mark," she called. He was still half asleep, hair a mess, eyes heavy. "What's wrong?" "It's gone," she said quietly. "The picture of the girl on our couch?" He rubbed his face. "Maybe it fell out." They searched the floor, the corners, under furniture. Nothing. It was simply gone, as if it had never existed. Emily tried to laugh it off, but her voice shook. "Maybe we imagined it." Mark didn't answer. He was staring at the vent, the same one he'd pulled the album from. The metal flap was slightly bent now, like someone had pried it open during the night. By noon, the tension was unbearable. Mark suggested they both take a break from unpacking, get out of the house for a while. They drove into town, had coffee, pretended things were normal. But when they came back around dusk, something felt off. The air inside the house was colder, heavier, and the faint smell of pond water hung in the hallway. Emily wrinkled her nose. "Did we leave a window open?" "No," Mark said, checking the locks again. All were closed tight. They cooked dinner in silence. Neither wanted to mention the footprints or the missing photo. Around 10 p.m., Emily went to brush her teeth. The bathroom mirror was fogged from the shower she'd taken earlier, the glass cloudy. She wiped it clean and froze. Behind her reflection, faint and almost transparent, stood the little girl in the blue dress. She wasn't smiling this time. Her head was tilted slightly, eyes dark, expression blank. Emily turned fast, no one there. Just the creak of the old pipes and the faint drip of the faucet. Her voice trembled when she called for Mark. He rushed in, saw the pale terror on her face, and grabbed her shoulders. "What happened?" I saw her." In the mirror. He looked at the glass. Nothing. Just their reflections now. Pale, scared, and small beneath the harsh bathroom light. "That's it," Mark said finally. "I'm checking every inch of this house tonight." He went from room to room, opening closets, tapping on walls, even crawling halfway into the attic hatch. The only unusual thing he found was a faint humming sound near the air vent, low, rhythmic, almost like a lullaby being hummed through metal. Emily waited on the couch, hugging a blanket to her chest. When he came back down, his face was pale. "What was it?" She whispered. "I don't know," he said. "It's coming from the vents, like singing." That night, neither of them slept. They left the bedroom light on, listening to every sound. Around 3 a.m., the singing returned, soft, gentle, almost kind. It floated through the hallway, through the vent grates, echoing faintly inside the walls. Emily whispered, "It's a child's voice." Mark stood, moving toward the sound, his shadow long and nervous against the wallpaper. "I'll check the vent again." "Don't," Emily said quickly. "Please, just leave it." He didn't listen. He crouched near the grate in the living room, pressing his ear close. The song stopped. For a second, there was silence. Then a whisper, low, direct, too close. "Why did you take my picture?" Mark stumbled back, heart pounding, flashlight clattering to the floor. He looked at Emily, eyes wide. She spoke. "I heard her. They didn't move for a long time." The only sound was the wind outside and the quiet ticking of the clock. Eventually, Emily whispered, "We should leave, tonight." But Mark shook his head. "If we run, it follows us. We need to know who she is, what she wants." In the corner, something caught Emily's eye. The missing photo lay on the coffee table. The little girl was smiling again, but now her hands were pressed against the inside of the picture, as if she were trying to push through the glass. By morning, the house felt wrong. The kind of wrong you can't describe. It was in the air, in the silence between heartbeats. Emily didn't want to touch the photo again. It lay on the coffee table, face up, that same little girl frozen mid-smile. The way her tiny palms pressed against the inside of the picture glass made it look like she was trapped behind it. Or maybe trying to get out. Mark brewed coffee with trembling hands. Neither of them had slept. His eyes were red, his voice hollow. I'm going to find out who she is, he said quietly. Emily didn't answer. She just stared at the vent. The faintest hum drifted from it, soft and tuneless now, like breathing. Mark left that morning for the county library. The house, built in 1978, had changed owners 3 times. The first family, the Langleys, had a daughter named Annabelle, 6 years old. She drowned in a pond behind the property. Her photo, printed in an old newspaper clipping, showed a girl in a blue dress, smiling exactly like the one in the album. Mark felt the blood drain from his face. He copied the article and another record that said the Langleys moved away soon after, unable to stay in the house. He returned home before sunset. Emily sat on the couch, pale, knees tucked under her chin. She's been whispering, she said softly. What? She says my name. Over and over, from the vents. Sometimes she cries. He dropped the papers onto the table. Her name was Annabelle Langley. She lived here. I know, Emily interrupted. She told me, Mark blinked. You talked to her? Emily shook her head. Not exactly, I just hear her voice. Like she's standing right behind me. That night, the air grew heavy again. Rain hammered the windows. The vents rattled every few minutes like something crawling inside. They sat in the living room with the lights low, the photo album between them. Mark turned the pages slowly. Maybe she's stuck. Maybe she wants to be found. Emily's voice cracked. Then what was she doing in our picture? He didn't have an answer. At 2:58 a.m., the power went out. The house plunged into darkness. Thunder rolled through the walls. Emily clutched Mark's arm, whispering, Don't move. From somewhere inside the walls came the sound of water, trickling, dripping, and then tiny footsteps. Slow, wet, deliberate. Mark grabbed a flashlight, sweeping it across the living room. The beam flickered, then caught something near the hallway. Small, muddy footprints appearing one by one across the floor. They weren't there before. They were forming as they watched. Emily's breath hitched. She's here. The flashlight went out. For a moment, total black, then a child's laugh. Soft, hollow, echoing from every vent in the house at once. Mark. Emily whispered, her voice breaking. She's in the walls. He stumbled toward the vent, fumbling for the screws, prying the cover loose. A gust of freezing air hit his face, carrying the smell of wet dirt. The beam from his flashlight flickered back on for just a second, enough to catch a glimpse of something deep inside. A pale hand, small, still dripping. Mark jerked back, slamming the cover shut. We're leaving. Now. They grabbed their keys, bolted out into the rain, and didn't stop running until they reached the car. The road was slick, the headlights cutting through fog. Emily sobbed quietly beside him. But halfway down the street, Mark saw something through the rearview mirror, a small figure standing in the upstairs window, watching them drive away. The blue dress glowed faintly in the lightning flashes. They spent the night at a motel just outside town. Emily wouldn't talk. She just sat by the window, staring at the rain, whispering, She's cold, she's so cold. Mark tried to convince himself it was trauma, exhaustion, suggestion, but when he pulled the folded newspaper clipping from his pocket, a wet smear covered the ink. The paper was damp, like it had been dipped in water. And then he noticed something impossible. The black and white photo of Annabelle in the article, the smiling girl by the pond, now had muddy fingerprints pressed along the edge of the paper. They went back the next morning, though every instinct screamed not to. The rain had stopped, but the air felt wrong heavy, gray, almost electric. The driveway still shimmered with puddles, and the house sat quiet, the way a body looks before you realize it's not breathing. Mark parked at the curb. We'll grab a few things, that's it, he said. His voice was dry, no conviction left. Emily stared at the front door. She's waiting. He wanted to argue, to tell her ghosts weren't real, but the truth was heavier than logic. He could still hear that child's laugh from the night before. The door creaked open on its own. Inside smelled of wet wood and something metallic like old water and rust. Their footsteps echoed on the floorboards. Every sound felt too loud. Emily went straight to the vent in the living room. The cover hung loose now, screws on the floor, as if someone had unscrewed them carefully in the night. "Mark," she whispered, "look." Inside, the small leather photo album sat again, right where he'd first found it. Only now, a single page was open. The photo showed the two of them standing by that very vent taken from behind, from inside the wall. Mark staggered back. "That's impossible." Emily touched the photo with shaking fingers. The paper was damp, the ink smeared slightly. "She wants us to see." He knelt, trying to steady his breathing. "See what?" The answer came in a whisper that rolled through every vent in the house. "She didn't fall." Emily froze. "What?" "She didn't fall," the voice said again, softer this time, right next to her ear. Mark grabbed her hand. "We're leaving now." But the lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. The temperature dropped so fast their breath clouded the air. Somewhere deep in the house, a child began to sob quiet, broken, gasping. Emily pulled toward the sound. "It's coming from the basement. Don't." "She's crying, Mark. She's scared." Against every instinct, he followed her down. The steps creaked under their weight. The air smelled of stagnant water and mold. A single bulb swung from the ceiling, its pull chain swaying though no one had touched it. In the far corner, puddles shimmered. And in those puddles, reflections that didn't belong, not theirs. A little girl in a blue dress stood knee-deep in the water, hair hanging over her face, skin gray and glistening. She was humming that same tune from the vents, low and off-key. Emily whispered, "Annabelle?" The girl lifted her head. Her eyes were wide, black pools with no white at all. Her voice came out like water bubbling through wood. "He pushed me." Mark's stomach turned. "Who?" The girl raised her hand, pointing toward the far wall. There, behind rotted boards, was a small wooden door half sunken in the concrete. Mark hesitated, then pulled it open. Inside was a dark cavity, maybe 2 feet deep, and at the bottom a small teddy bear, soaked and half rotted. Next to it lay a child's hair ribbon, crusted with mud. Emily covered her mouth. "Oh God, she didn't fall," the girl whispered again. "He pushed me and buried me here." Mark felt sick. The previous owner, the one who sold the house cheap, had been a middle-aged man who lived alone for years. He'd said his wife left, no kids. But what if that wasn't true? Before he could speak, the groundwater rippled. The reflection of the girl twisted, then slowly began to sink, like she was being pulled down. Her tiny hand reached up through the puddle. Emily dropped to her knees, grabbing it instinctively. Cold shot up her arm like ice water. "It's okay," she whispered. "You can rest now." "You can go." The girl's mouth opened in a silent cry, and the bulb above them shattered. For a moment, nothing but darkness. Mark fumbled for the flashlight, but the light refused to turn on. When he finally got it working, the basement was empty. No water, no girl, no reflection. Just the faint sound of dripping and Emily still kneeling, her hand clutching the teddy bear. They burned the album that night, right there in the fireplace. The flames hissed, curling the photos one by one. But as the last picture turned to ash, the smoke formed a shape, small shoulders, a dress, and a whisper that almost sounded like, "Thank you." They sold the house a month later, never went back. The new owners, a young couple with a toddler, seemed happy. Mark and Emily didn't warn them. Maybe they didn't want to believe it themselves. But sometimes, late at night, Emily swears she hears humming through the vents in their new apartment. And every now and then, she finds tiny wet footprints leading from the bathroom to the living room. They fade by morning, usually